Hello, my friends. Let us address gluttony today. I think a lot of times we think of gluttony as just simply purely being food, alcohol, sex. I think sex we talked about during lust. But also there's a few more things that we can be gluttonous with. Think about gambling, or perhaps we work too much, or perhaps it's just too much entertainment, or maybe we got too many hobbies going. All these different things that can kind of get in our way, and we can just kind of consume and consume and consume and consume and consume. And that really doesn't help us. Even shopping, we call it consumerism for a reason, because we just consume and consume. Now, all these are different manifestations of gluttony. And this is just simply when we see something and we want it and we do it. We see something, we want it, and we do it. It's really a movement from I have an impulse and I act on my impulse. And we are moving away from what is dignified. We move away from our dignity that includes our intelligence, and we begin to act merely as merely as animals. Yes, we are animals, but we are intelligent animals, and we need to conform all of our decisions and all of our actions, even if they have this animal dimension. We need to order all of that in accordance with our intelligence and pursue what is truly good. So as we talk about the causes for gluttony, let's just kind of look at kind of the basic experience of an action of gluttony. So first off, there is seeing the thing. And then there's wanting the thing. And then there's choosing the thing. And just kind of break this down a little bit more. When we see it, I'll use the example of a piece of cake. Maybe you're like, well, I should probably slow down on my consumption of cake for various reasons. Maybe it's just too much sugar. Maybe it's putting on a little bit of pounds. Maybe it's just because you can't really control yourself. And when we see that cake, immediately it's just like, oh, there it is. I want it. Oh, I want it so bad. I can't walk out of the room without just taking a bite. So it moves from seeing it to this experience of desiring it, and then it moves to this movement towards not just desiring it, but we choose to get it, to take it, to use it for ourselves. So at the point of seeing the cake, there's no sin there. At the point of desiring the cake, there's no sin there. The only sin is when we choose to eat it in a way that is not moderate, that is out of order, that is not helping us pursue our true good. It's okay to eat cake, but we can't eat like 20 pieces. And if we're realizing that we've had a lot of years of eating 20 pieces, then we might need to just cut out cake altogether. So our goal in this is to have moderation in all things, that we eat our cake, or that we work, or that we shop, or that we do whatever we're doing, even hobbies. We do all this in accordance with right reason, that we do all this in a moderate way. It doesn't mean that we go cold turkey on these things, but it does mean that we have to limit ourselves and go back to what is moderate. So as we talked about that threefold step of causation towards getting us to do something out of moderation, well, let's then kind of look forward and look to the healing of those three steps. The first step, where we see the thing, where we see that piece of cake, where we see that little extra work that we need to do before we go home with our families, before we see that, oh, I can win my money back if we're out gambling at the casino. Well, the first thing we need to do is just kind of shut our eyes to that situation. If we go to the store and we buy cake and we put it right there in the counter, that is not helping us, because every time we walk by that cake, we see it. And every time we see it, it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I love cake. Okay, so the first step is to not buy the cake. It is to shut down your computer at 5 p.m. and just go home, and don't look through your emails one last time. Don't go looking for an extra bit of work to do. You're done for the day. Go home. Don't be a workaholic. If you're going gambling, plan to lose money. Just plan to lose money. Do not count on winning. Don't try to win back anything. We just have to say, like, okay, I'm taking in my $10. I'm going to have some fun, and boom. Because you can gamble in moderation. You can work in moderation. You can shop in moderation. You can do all these things in moderation. But we have to not go shopping when we realize we should not go shopping, and all these different things. So the first thing is eliminating the opportunity to overindulge. We have to just cut out that from our senses. We can't put ourselves in a situation where we'll see it, or where we'll know it, or where we'll learn about it. We just have to say, nope, we're done here. Boom. End of story. The second part is when we have these desires that are disordered, well, we need to correct those. We need to heal those. That's a better way. After Adam and Eve, before Adam and Eve, it would have been great because all their desires were perfectly ordered towards the good, towards charity towards God, but also charity towards each other. There was no desire to eat too much of the fruit of the garden. But after sin, it's just like, I want to do this, that, and the other. And we end up eating too much, buying too much, indulging ourselves too much, wanting too much comfort, whatever it is. And we enter into this gluttony. And we need to heal these desires that we have. We need to pray, Lord, help heal these desires. But we also need to be in tandem. If we're not praying, we're doing it wrong. But alongside that prayer, we need to also be doing our fair share in having our acts of self-denial to conform us to that. So if I realize that I'm overindulging in my desire to shop, well, let me go to the very opposite desire. I need to get rid of stuff. I need to just say adios. I'm getting rid of all my shoes. I'm getting rid of all the movies that I've bought. I need to get rid of all these different things. Even if you can't get rid of all of them, get rid of some of them as much as you can. Trim that fat from your way of life. Or if it's food, just stop eating as much. Eat to maintain your body. I'm not advocating a 3,000-year fast. That's going to kill you. That will end your life. Don't do that. Live for another day, because that's God's plan. But also, don't be afraid to swing to the other direction to educate your desires. Okay, self, you have desired cake too much. I want you to go a whole month without eating cake. And to really kind of stick it to yourself, I'm going to not have any dessert. And I'm going to take away salt and pepper too. And maybe one day a week, I'm not going to eat anything except for bread. Or maybe just one meal a day. Whatever it is, we need to know our bodies. We can't go and swing too far to the direction. Our bodies will be educated after a while, be like, okay, I can survive without a meal for this long. Okay, but it's a process in learning our bodies. So we first off just kind of start cutting off some of those things so we can educate our desires in the good, so that our desires do not impede us from our making good decisions. Thirdly, after seeing the thing and desiring the thing, at this point there's no sin, even though that might not be so helpful. They might be the occasion of sin, and if it's a serious thing, it might be sinning if we walk into that occasion. But ultimately, it's our decision. I am choosing to eat this cake. We can have a great desire for cake, but we can also have that great desire of cake and not eat it. Because we're human beings, we're not animals. If we are enslaved to our passions, well, then we are living the life of an animal. But if we live according to our dignity, in accordance with our reason, and in accordance with our spiritual side, which orders the rest of us, rest of our desires, rest of our senses, well, we are living well. But this is a process. We have to get used to controlling our decisions. And that means we got to get used to saying no. Saying no to ourselves. Saying no, I ain't going to the store again. I ain't going to go to the casino anymore. I'm not going to overindulge in buying this for my house and making it really nice. I'm not going to overindulge in food. Even if it's fancy food, I'm going to put off the fancy food. If it's too much food, I'm going to just kind of cut back on that. Whatever it is. Saint Jose Maria Escrivá, he says, I can't find this quote, I might be wrong, but I was told that he said, whoever cannot deny themselves at any meal is acting like a pig. It's okay. If I go through a meal and in that meal I do not have any act of self-denial, he's calling me a pig. But I think this is great because in every act of self-denial, we are living in accordance with our dignity, and our dignity is real. And our dignity calls us forth into conforming all of our life towards the good, which is ultimately God, and all the different steps in arriving at God. So we need to get used to denying ourselves. We need to get used to saying no, because we can't afford to have a weak will that can't say no to ourselves. So I hope this helps. There are some, when we're praying, I think it's also helpful to consider certain things. First off, when we're like, oh, there's that cake, let's remind ourselves that it was through gluttony that Adam and Eve sinned. Because it's right there in the text. Eve saw the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which she was not permitted to eat, and she saw that it was good to the taste. It was good for eating, and she ate it. The original sin was one of eating. Okay, let's be aware of that. It caused a terrible ramification. That really wrecked the whole humanity up for us. That really kind of threw a wrench in things. Let's also recall, wow, Jesus Christ really fasted. He fasted for 40 days totally. I'm not Jesus Christ. I can't fast like him, but let me at least imitate him a little bit. This is worth praying on. Also, let's think about that parable of Lazarus and the rich man. You remember how that goes? It goes where Jesus is telling this story, and he says, there are two men. There was one who was rich, and he ate these sumptuous banquets, and always outside of his door was a man named Lazarus. We don't get the name of the rich man, but we get the name of Lazarus. And God is saying this is a man with dignity. And the rich man who was living this lifestyle that was rich, he was losing his dignity because he just gave himself to his desires. And both of these men die. Lazarus is in heaven, and the rich man is in hell. And the rich man is saying, oh, please send Lazarus over to me to soothe me in my suffering. And God says, no. No. We need to remind ourselves that this is a path towards hell if we just totally rend ourselves in that path. Because that's kind of the path that Jesus said. If you keep on walking this way, you're going to be like the rich man. We have to be mindful of other people and be merciful to that, and recognize that this lifestyle of just self-comforting, self-pleasing, and just living the life of gluttony, it takes us away from God. And ultimately, it might separate us from him. So I hope that this might wake us up a little bit to be like, oh yeah, wait, gluttony is a sin. In fact, it's one of the 7 deadly sins. It's the last of the 7 deadly sins in this series that I've been doing. I hope these have been helpful. Let us really strive towards God. Let us give ourselves to him. And these sins, I'm only highlighting them so that we can clear them out of our way, so that we can make a more generous gift of ourselves to him. Because he is our King. He is our Lord. He is our love. And our lives have the greatest dignity and the greatest magnificence when they are in his hands, without any of the clutter that comes from our sinfulness. So my brothers and sisters, pray for me, and I look forward to talking with you once more. Peace.